Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. Scientists have revealed that hot is cold. Melting Arctic sea ice destroys French wine harvest. Sudden frosts across Europe have hit vineyards hard, with scientists revealing that melting Arctic sea ice is responsible for the unpredictable climate. And these are the same scientists who told us 4 years ago that spring is coming 26 days earlier than it used to. So 4 years ago, global warming made spring come early, and now global warming makes spring come late. If the symptoms of global warming are that it gets very cold, then what would the symptoms of global cooling be? Using their logic, global cooling should make things very hot. But unfortunately for these scamsters, a new study has come out saying the exact opposite. Science Magazine, May 12, 2021, landmark study cast doubt on controversial theory linking melting Arctic to severe winter weather. So the theory presented in the first article was always controversial and is complete nonsense. But that's not how the press reported on it. They simply said, melting Arctic sea ice destroys French wine harvest. There's no truth to this claim, but the press presents it with 100% certainty. Now let's look at what's actually going on with Arctic sea ice. Arctic sea ice extent is a little bit below the 1981 to 2010 mean. The scamsters in the first article are trying to claim that this tiny deficiency in sea ice caused the French wine harvest to freeze. And meanwhile in the Antarctic, sea ice extent is a little bit above the 1981 to 2010 mean. So between the two poles, the amount of sea ice on Earth is just about normal. And here's today's global temperature anomaly map from the University of Maine. Global temperatures are about 0.2 degrees Celsius above normal. Doesn't really sound like we're about to burn up. We're going to look a little more at the Arctic in a few minutes, but now let's travel to Montana. This is Google Earth imagery of the Grinnell Glacier and Glacier National Park. Now let's look at Google Earth imagery from 25 years ago. The quality of the imagery was much lower, but you can see the extent of the glacier in 1994. Now let's compare the ice edge to the year 2020. It's in exactly the same place. 2020, 1994. 2020, 1994. The glacier hasn't changed. If anything has changed, the glacier has grown slightly larger. In 1923, experts predicted that Glacier National Park would be ice-free in 25 years, which would have been 1948. Then in 1936, experts predicted that Glacier National Park would be ice-free in 25 years, which would have been 1961. Then in 1952, experts predicted that Glacier National Park would be ice-free in 50 years, which would have been 2002. Then in 2009, experts predicted that Glacier National Park would be ice-free by the year 2020. And in 2014, experts predicted that Glacier National Park would be ice-free in 30 years or by the year 2044. But the reality is that the glaciers aren't melting and they're the same size they were 25 years ago. The famous American physicist Richard Feynman said, "Science is the belief in the ignorance of the experts." Now let's go back to the Arctic and look at Arctic sea ice extent for every day for the past 15 years. There hasn't been any meaningful trend in Arctic sea ice over the past 15 years. It melts during the summer and freezes back in the winter. This graph shows May 12th Arctic sea ice extent going back to the year 1989. Sea ice extent is the highest for the date in the past 8 years. It's also higher than 15 years ago, 17 years ago, and is about the same as 1989, the year when Alexandria Cortez was born. Arctic sea ice extent is the highest in the past 8 years, yet climate scientists are trying to blame the record cold in France on sea ice melting. Arctic sea ice extent is about the same as it was in 2008. Now let's go back to 2008 and look at some predictions. March 1st, 2008, expert Arctic polar ice cap may disappear this summer. June 20th, 2008, National Geographic News, North Pole may be ice-free for the first time this summer. So because of these brilliant predictions being made by climate scientists in 2008, British swimmer Lewis Pugh tried to kayak to the North Pole. He made it about 20 miles out of Svalbard before he got blocked by ice. But not all the experts in 2008 predicted the Arctic would be ice-free that year. Jay Zwally at NASA was more conservative and predicted the ice wouldn't be gone till 2012. And Mark Cerise at the National Snow and Ice Data Center in Boulder, Colorado said, "The Arctic is screaming." And National Geographic said Arctic sea ice wouldn't be gone until the year 2012. The BBC was even more conservative and said the ice wouldn't be gone until the year 2013. And Nobel Prize winner Al Gore said the ice wouldn't be gone until 2014. The world's leading climate expert, James Hansen from NASA, who started the global warming scare before Congress in 1988, said the ice would be gone between 2013 and 2018. And congressional Democrats said that Dr. Hansen was a climate prophet. The Sierra Club, with their nice green logo, predicted the ice would be gone by 2013. But the best prediction of all was from President Obama's science advisor, John Holdren, who predicted the Arctic would become ice-free all year round, even during winter. So according to climate experts, there's no ice in the Arctic, but there's lots of ice on French vineyards. My first article as a climate skeptic was 13 years ago. I wrote, "Arctic ice refuses to melt as ordered." I was writing under a pen name at that time because I knew if the company I was working for found out I was doing this, they would fire me. And that's exactly what happened 3 years later. I attended a climate conference for the European Union in Lisbon in January of 2011. I returned home and the next day the green company I worked for walked me out the door. There's a high price to be paid for telling the truth. All the leading government experts and Nobel Prize winners were saying back in 2008 that the ice was about to disappear, and I said that these people had no idea what they were talking about.
Another new study to be presented by U.S. Navy researchers later this week warns it could happen in as little as 7 years. 7 years from now. In the last few months, it has been harder and harder to misinterpret the signs that our world is spinning out of kilter.
I agree with him that our world is spinning out of kilter, but it's not because of climate change, it's because of insane policy driven by junk climate science. 1 year ago, Congress urged Google to act against dangerous climate misinformation on YouTube. What Democrats meant by climate misinformation is any factual information about climate. The only climate information which Democrats wanted to hear was their own carefully crafted lies. Shortly after this happened, YouTube started censoring me for telling the truth. If Google actually censored dangerous climate misinformation, you'd never see Joe Biden, John Kerry, Michael Mann, Bill Nye, or Katharine Hayhoe. You would definitely never see Greta Thunberg or Alexandria Cortez. Those people are purveying dangerous climate misinformation, which is currently causing gas shortages and skyrocketing prices. Lots of people are getting hurt by this climate scam, and Toto's been pulling back the curtain on them for the past 13 years. You can visit Toto and Kyrie on the web at realclimatescience.com.